Hi, and welcome to the review for Test 3, which is this coming Monday.
Okay, first question. Describe some meaningful differences between permanent, semi-permanent, and transient mountain people, and give an example of each. So here in this answer, A, B, and C, you can see I've described these different terms for mountain people, mountain populations, but I'm not giving you any examples. You need to come up with the example yourself. So permanent is the multi-generational connection. Semi-permanent would be like nomads, the seasonal inhabitants, or economic migrants, or many amenity migrants, people who have a secondary residence in the mountains. And then transient, people who spend large amounts of time in the mountains through frequent visits, but they don't live there and they don't earn their livelihoods there.
Explain why mountain cultures are so diverse and list one or more mountain characteristics that contribute to cultural diversity. So, mountains are really topographically rugged and complex, and they act as barriers. And this characteristic, this physical characteristic in particular, tends to isolate mountain cultures, even those that live relatively close by. Just, you might be in one valley over and speak a different dialect, for instance. So there's really high cultural diversity across these somewhat isolated and remote mountain populations. And especially because they oftentimes will speak different languages or different dialects, that creates even more diversity. And in some cases, when a mountain culture is formerly a lowland culture that was displaced for whatever reason, that adds to whatever existing diversity might have been in that region. So there are a number of reasons that contribute to cultural diversity. Explain in your own words how differences in mountain economies lead to demographic shifts and migration in mountain areas. And so in this particular question, I'm asking about in-migration, where people are moving into a mountain region, and out migration, where people are moving out of a mountain region. And so the differences in mountain economies, I mean by that, like a resource intensive economy such as mining, and that would lead to in-migration, and that would be very gender specific, typically men. It might be a not intensive economic opportunity, but a climate related reason that is contributing to in-migration. So climate refugees from really hot lowland regions. And so that wouldn't be gender specific. It might be entire extended families shifting. And it can also be very seasonal, associated with tourism related jobs or recreation related jobs, like, the ski industry or something like that. And out migration, the differences in mountain economies in this case is when you have very limited economic opportunities in a mountain community. And so people who are seeking better economic opportunities might leave that community. Young men especially might depart, so that's out migration. Or you might have just seasonal men, or especially men, seasonally commuting or migrating to other cities and or even other countries in search of better economic opportunities, whereas women, children, and elderly are left behind. One case in which women might engage in outmigration is if they leave and go to another country for domestic duties like childcare and home care for other people. List and explain two ways that mountain weather and climate affect mountain peoples and their communities. So in this case, I mean like their health and also their communities in terms of like where they might settle and things that they might be doing. So for instance, temperature, obviously, cold temperatures at high altitudes can lead to hypothermia. That's a health related impact. Seasonal temperature swings affect agriculture, the types of things that are grown. Settlements themselves are constructed in places where it might be slightly warmer, like down in the valleys, but ski resorts would be constructed at higher altitudes. So hypoxia is a big one. Less oxygen at high altitudes, and that can cause high altitude pulmonary edema, also known as HAPE. It leads to reduced fertility, reduced birth weight. It has a number of severe immediate health-related concerns, but also people can adapt to it in different ways. Higher lung and heart capacity and more ability to produce red blood cells. Precipitation in the mountains, the amount of precip, the type and the timing, whether it's snow or rain, the intensity of the precipitation, the seasonality of the precipitation, all of that affects livelihoods that are based on agriculture, as well as recreation and tourism. But also really intense precipitation can lead to hazards like avalanches, landslides, debris flows, floods. Sunlight, we don't often think of sunlight as a hazard, but the ultraviolet radiation in sunlight, especially at high altitudes where there's less atmosphere to mitigate it, UV light is a big hazard, causing severe burning on skin, especially if you're in a snowy place where it is reflected upward. Wind is a big deal, both for health and for where mountain communities are located. So wind evaporates moisture, it really dries everything out, so it can rip the leaves off of plants and trees if you're trying to grow something in a windy area. Typically settlements and agricultural areas will be located in places that are more wind sheltered. And wind can also really exacerbate wildfires, so it has definitely a hazard related component to it. In terms of sacred mountains, explain what is meant by cosmic mountain. So a cosmic mountain is like a mountain that is real in a spiritual sense. It does not have to have an actual location. I guess a mythical mountain is another way of saying it, with deep spiritual meaning, and it serves as the connection between the physical world and the cosmic realm. And in fact, mountains themselves are anchored down on the earth and extend upwards into the heavens. And so a cosmic mountain might not have an actual geophysical location, but it certainly has a metaphysical location, a sense of a mountain in a cosmology, in a theology. In terms of sacred mountains, give 3 reasons why Mount Kailash is important. And Mount Kailash is also known as Mount Meru. It does have a physical location. That location is recognized as the physical, spiritual, and metaphysical center for multiple religions: Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism. It's the source of 4 major rivers, so it's considered the giver of life. And it's also the home and embodiment of gods such as Shiva and his family. In your own words, state in your own words and provide an explanation of 2 of the 4 principles of community and ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction from the Klein et al. Article that I asked you to read, and also the lecture slides in which I covered this topic. So the first one is that the focus is on local needs. The idea is that you want the governance, which is like policies, how your structure of your policy-making entities, governance, and the institutional arrangements, laws, policies, and agencies. You want those to fit local needs. The second would be fostering resilient communities through sustainable development and capacity building. So you want these communities to really buy into these ideas and build capacity at the community level to help them become more resilient to known disasters. The third is cross-scalar integrated knowledge, innovation, and learning. So by that, I mean local, regional, and even larger scale integrated knowledge. And that might even be cross-scalar in terms of one mountain community learning from another mountain community in a different part of the world. But the idea is you take knowledge from different places, different scales. It might be national, it might be very localized, um, but whatever it takes, right? So, this integrated knowledge that might be very innovative to help people learn how to increase their resilience to disasters and reduce their risks. The fourth is that disaster relief itself, when a disaster does occur, that relief should be focused on equity, inclusion, and well being. And I mentioned in lecture the Sendai framework, which really focuses on women, because a lot of times in disaster relief, women are kind of the ones holding together the families. They're the ones that are taking care of children. They're often the ones that are taking care of elderly people. And those are the folks that are most vulnerable. And so the equity part of it means that it can't just be on one group, maybe, a wealthy group or one religious group or one caste or whatever that might be. It needs to be equitable, inclusive, and really focused on the well-being of people, not just giving things or money. Considering the concept of mountains as sacred center, that idea of Axis Mundi, state in your own words. So I want you to be able to say this. 3 aspects of mountain morphology that are important. And here's a list of them, but I want you to be able to explain these. Profile. Is it a flat top mountain? Is it very pointy? Does it have 3 peaks? Whatever that might be. What is the profile? The peak elevation. Typically, the idea of mountains as sacred center, these are really high mountains. Relative relief, it has to be much higher than the surrounding area. Oftentimes, the rock color comes into play, like certainly with Mount Kailash, the idea that it has this 4 sides. Each side is the source of one of these major rivers, and each side is associated with a particular color. Whether it be, white glacier ice or blue lapis lazuli or red ruby. And lastly, snow and glacier cover. So a lot of these sacred mountains are really like glittering and white in the distance and just so bright compared to the surrounding region. It really becomes a focal point. And that sense of like really white, pure, glittering in the sunshine, that really has a strong inference when it comes to the idea of sacred mountains. What are the 3 components of risk? Give an example, a specific example of each component. So I'm listing the 3 components here and explaining them, but I need you to give me a specific example of each component. So there's hazard, exposure, and vulnerability. Those are the 3 components that make up risk. And hazard is defined as an anticipated harmful event. Exposure is who or what may experience that hazard. And vulnerability is the socioeconomic or physical vulnerability. So I'm actually kind of giving you a few examples for that one. All right, the last 2 here are you need to come up with this, and I want you to do a good job. So you should have been working a lot in the last week or 2 on your selected mountain region. I've really been pushing that hard. So here are 2 questions. The first one here is, for your selected mountain region, describe 2 important natural hazards. Don't just list them. Tell me what they are and then describe them. And then the second one is, for your selected mountain region, describe 2 types of tourism and the way they contribute to the economy of the region. Now, if your particular area does not have significant tourism, just say that and do your very best. So, all right. Thanks, and I'll see you on Monday. Please let me know if you have any questions.